Hi there. Welcome to Scheherazade's Sanctuary. I'm your host, Scheherazade, and I would like to welcome you back to the channel. Today, we are continuing the great love story of Layla and Majnun. When we last saw them, our lovers had shared a brief but passionate look, giving respite to the pain of their separation. And now it is time to see where next their story will take us. Before we begin, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Done? Okay, let us begin. Chapter 6. Majnun's secret sorties did not long remain hidden from Layla's people, who were incensed. By day and by night they guarded the whole area to block the way against the disturber of the peace. The bridge between the two banks had fallen in, no sound reached the other side. Still, Majnun continued to roam in the mountains of Najd. More and more often, in forever lengthening spells, he left the dwelling places and pastures of his tribe, wandering aimlessly through the desert, composing ghazals which he sang to himself. He was in rags and looked wilder each day. Overwhelmed by his melancholia, he did not listen to anyone or anything. Nothing that otherwise pleases or disturbs a man found an echo in his heart. His 2 or 3 companions had long since left him. From afar, people pointed at him and said, "There goes Majnun the madman, the crazy one, the one who was once called XII. He heaps shame and dishonor on himself and his people." There was not one among Majnun's people who did not feel ashamed of him. They had done all they could to help the youth and avert his trouble, but what good had that done in the end? Can one quench such a conflagration with good advice? And who of the counselors had ever suffered such grief? Still, it could not go on like this. Not only the lover's sanity, but the reputation of his family, of the whole tribe, was at stake. Was not Chais's father the leader of the Amir? He was, and no one was so shaken by the disaster which his son caused and suffered. Yet, even he could not change the course of fate. He was an old man, growing rapidly older under the strain. When Majnun's state, far from improving, deteriorated even further, his father, the Sayyid, one day assembled all the counselors and elders in his tent. He asked everyone, and each told what he knew. The story was long and sad, and when the old man had heard it from beginning to end, his head sank lower and his heart grew heavier. What could be done? After he had considered carefully what he had heard, he spoke. "My son has lost his heart to this girl. If he could only win her, he would find himself again. His senses are confused because for him this jewel is the eye of the world. As it is hidden from him, he lives in darkness, a blind man. We must find his pearl. If we brush the dust from the budding rose, it would break into bloom." Then the Sayyid asked all the elders, one after the other, to give their opinion. And behold, they all agreed. Trying to win, for the sleepwalker his moon, a delegation was sent to Layla's tribe. No sooner said than done, and the old Sayyid led the dignitaries on their way. His sadness gone, he was full of confidence that they could untie the knot in his son's life thread. There was no feud between the tribes, so when the visitors arrived, they were received by Layla's people, high and humble, with great friendliness, feasted and treated with great deference. Only then did the hosts turn to the Sayyid, asking politely what he desired. "Tell us why you have come," they said. "If you are in need of help, it will be granted. We count it an honor to assist you." "These young people on whose behalf I am approaching you will strengthen the ties between us," responded the Sayyid of the Amiri tribe. He then looked at Layla's father, who was accompanied by the dignitaries of his tribe, and told him, "May your daughter and my son enhance each other's lives. Behold, I have come to establish a close link between us. I ask for your child's hand on behalf of my own. Both have grown up in the same desert. My son is thirsting to drink from your fountain, and such pure drink will restore him body and soul. Nor have I any cause to be ashamed of my request. There is, as you know, no man among us whose standing is higher than mine. I have many followers and great reaches. I can be a valuable friend or a formidable enemy. Whatever you demand as a dowry shall be yours. I have come as a buyer, and you, if you are wise, will state your price and sell. Take note, there is a chance of great gain for you today. Tomorrow it may be too late. Do not forget how often prices fall suddenly in the bazaar." Thus spoke the Sire. Anxiety for his son sharpened his tongue. But Layla's father was a proud, hard man. After the Emiri had finished, this was his reply. "What you say is your own affair, but you cannot change fate or the course of the world by words. You speak well, and your words are full of sap. But do you really think that enough to lure me into fire? You have shown me the attractive cover, but what lies hidden underneath, causing enemies greatly to rejoice, you have not mentioned. Your son is a stately youth, and, seen from afar, would be welcomed anywhere. But don't we all know better than that? Who has not heard more than enough about him and his foolishness? Who is not aware of his madness? He is mad, and a madman is no son-in-law for us. Therefore, you had better pray first that he be cured. Afterwards you may mention marriage again, but until then there can be no question of it. Nobody would buy a faulty jewel to be set with a flawless one. And there is something else. You know only too well how keen-eyed and sharp-tongued Arabs are. What would they say, and how would they jeer, if I did what you suggest? Forget, therefore, what you have said." This was a bitter pill for Majnun's father to swallow, but what could he say? He remained silent, and so did his companions. All they could do was to depart. It was a sad homecoming for them who had set out so certain of success. VII. When Majnun's father and his friends had failed to obtain Layla's hand, they tried once more to cure the youth by warnings and good advice. "Why," so said they, "do you worship only this girl Layla? Look around among the girls of your own tribe. You will find so many with lips like hyacinths, sweet-scented and dressed in Egyptian linen, beauties who are perhaps even more attractive than she who has stolen your heart. You are free to choose from among 100 maidens, each of them lovelier than the new spring. Find a companion who will be a comfort to you instead of torturing your heart, a girl like milk and honey, worthy of you. Let the foreigner go." Thus his friends talked. Their intentions were good, but what did they know about the fire burning in Majnun's soul? Their words nursed the conflagration of thorn bushes. Prickly at first, they soon began to burn, and increased the flame which they meant to smother. No. Majnun was now doubly in despair about the answer of Layla's father, and the warnings of his own people. Nothing could sweeten the bitterness which had transformed his world into darkest night. Expelled from the land of happiness, he was now a stranger in either world. He beat his head with his fists and rent his garments from top to bottom. Even a corpse has at least a shroud. But then, a corpse is at home in his grave. Majnun had no home anywhere. He left his father and his relatives and ran away, paying no attention to roads and directions. He called out, "There is no power and no might except with Allah." And truly, God alone knows how the unhappy youth overcame his desire to kill himself, for everything that binds human beings had fallen away from him. He no longer knew what was good and what was evil, and could not distinguish the one from the other. Through every tent rang out his cry, "Layla, Layla." His hair fell unkempt about his face, his eyes stared yet saw nothing of his fellow men, nor heard their reproaches. The crowd who watched and followed him was growing all the time. They were greatly upset by his behavior, but when he began to talk in verse and sing about his love, when he addressed the star of his longing, when the fire in his heart reached the tip of his tongue and sadness resounded from his lips, the mood of his listeners changed. They stood surprised and deeply moved, and soon there was no one who did not shed tears about the minstrel and his fate. Majnun, however, noticed neither reproach nor sympathy. He was not even aware of the people around him. It was as if his name had been torn out of the book of life, and he had fallen into nothingness, as if he were no longer one of the living and not yet one of the dead. A stone had dropped on his heart. He was like a burnt-out candle, or a maimed bird that had lost its mate and flutters helplessly in the dust. In the end, strength left his body. He fell to his knees as if at prayer and cried until consciousness returned and he felt pain flowing over his lips like a dark stream. "Oh, who can cure my sickness? An outcast I have become. Family and home, where are they? No path leads back to them, and none to my beloved. Broken are my name, my reputation, like glass smashed on a rock. Broken is the drum which once spread the good news, and my ears now hear only the drum beats of separation. Huntress, beautiful one whose victim I am now, limping a willing target for your sorrows. I follow obediently my beloved, who owns my soul. If she says, 'Get drunk,' that is what I shall do. If she orders me to be mad, that is what I shall do. To tame a madman like me, fate has no chains. Crushed as I am, what hope is there that I could ever be revived? Heaven, grant that a rockfall may crush me and bury me, or that lightning may strike me, burning down the house with all its furnishings. Is there no one who would throw me into the crocodile jaws of death? No one who would free me from myself and the world from my shame? Misbegotten creature, madman, demon of my family, yes, I am a thorn in the flesh of my people, and even my name brings shame upon my friends. Anyone may shed my blood, I am outlawed, and who kills me is not guilty of murder. Goodbye to you, companions of past feastings. I salute you. Farewell. Look, the wine is spilled. The glass has slipped from my hand and broken. Of my happiness only shards are left, with sharp edges which cause deep anguish. But when you come, do not be afraid of cutting your feet. The flood of my tears has swept away the shards far, far away." Did Majnun notice the people who surrounded him, silently staring and listening? So it seemed, for when he turned and spoke to them, he said this: "What do you know who have no notion of my grief? Away with you, make room. Do not look for me, I am not where you believe me to be. I am lost even to myself. One does not address people like me, you torture and oppress me. How much longer? Leave me alone with my unhappiness. No need to chase me from the tents, I shall go freely, I am going." but Majnun no longer had the strength to flee. He fell on his knees in the dust. Again and again, in deep desperation, his heart went out to Layla, who was so far away, and implored her to help him. "I have fallen. What shall I do? Oh, my beloved, come and take my hand. I can endure it no longer. I am yours, more used to you alive than dead. Be generous and send me a greeting. Send a message to revive me. You are imprisoned, I know, but why imprison you? I am the madman. I should be fettered. Bind me to you. Wind again your tresses around my neck. They are torn, yet I remain your slave. Do something. Help me. This is a cruel game. End it. Lift your foot, that I may kiss it. Things cannot remain as they are. It is not right to sit in the corner, arms folded, doing nothing. Take pity on me. A rested man has no feeling for one who is exhausted. A rich man, his hunger stilled, who invites a beggar to his table, knows nothing about starvation. Yet, he may eat a few morsels to honor his guest. Aren't we both human beings, you as well as I? Even if you are a blossoming beech tree, while I am a thorn-dried bush? Peace of my soul, where are you? Why do you rob me of life? Other than my love, what is the sin of my heart, this heart which asks for your forgiveness? Of 1,000 nights, give me only one. Look, everything else I have gambled away and lost. Do not say no. If you are angry with me, quench the fire of your wrath with the water of my years. I am a star, my new moon, driven to distraction by my longing to see you. My only companion is my shadow, and even with him I do not dare talk, fearing lest he might become a rival. If only your shadow had stayed with me, but even that you have taken away, and my heart and soul with it. And what did I receive in return? What is left to me? Hope? A thirsty child may well in a dream see a hand offering a golden cup, but when he wakes, what remains? All that he can do is suck his fingers to quench his thirst. What does it matter? Nothing can ever extinguish the love for you in my heart. It is a riddle without a solution, a code which none can decipher. It entered my body with my mother's milk, to leave it together with my soul, of that I am sure. Here Majnun felt silent. His voice failed, and unconscious he fell forward, his face in the dust. All who had listened to him and saw him lying there felt sad. Gently they lifted the unhappy youth and carried him home to his father's tent. Love, if not true, is but a plaything of the senses failing like the youth. Time perishes, not true love. All may be imagination and delusion, but not love. The charcoal brazier on which it burns is eternity itself, without beginning or end. Majnun won fame as a lover, for he carried love's burden as long as he lived. Love was the flower's scent and the breath of the wind. Even now, when the rose has faded, a drop of the rose water endures and will last forever, giving pleasure to you, O listener, and to Nizami. VII. The further away his moon, Layla, shone in the sky, the higher Majnun waved his banner of his love. As his mad passion grew day by day, so his repute declined among his friends. But yet, his family, and above all his father, had not given up hope that his dark night might end and a new morning dawn. Once more they took counsel, and, having talked for a long time without result, their thoughts finally converged on the Kaaba, God's sanctuary in Mecca, visited every year by thousands and thousands of faithful pilgrims from near and far. Well, they said, could it not happen after all that the Almighty One would come to our aid, that the door for which we have no key would suddenly open? Is not the Kaaba the altar of heaven and earth, where the whole world prays for God's blessings and help? Why not we? Majnun's father, the old Sayyid, agreed. He prepared everything he thought necessary, and when the month of pilgrimage, the 12th and the last of the year, had come, he left with a small caravan for the holy city. He had chosen his best camels for the journey, and for Majnun, the apple of his eye, he had secured a litter which carried the love-sick youth as gently as a moon's cradle. They reached Mecca safely. As he had done on the way, the leader of the tribe showered alms on the crowd like a dust storm which carried gold coins instead of sand. But a storm raged along in his breast, and the nearer they came to their goal, the more excited he became. Devoured by hope and impatience, he could hardly wait for the moment when he would be able to entrust his sorrow child to the grace of the Almighty. At last, the time had come. Father and son stood in the shadow and the protection of the holiest of holies. Gently, the Sayyid took the youth by his hand and said to him, "Here, my dearest son, every plague comes to its end. Try to find relief from your sufferings. Here, in front of this temple and its master, you must pray to be freed from your sorrow. Listen, this should be your prayer. Save me, my God, from this vain ecstasy. Have pity on me. Grant me refuge. Take my madness away and lead me back to the path of righteousness. I am love's unhappy victim. Help me. Free me from the evil of my love. Recite this prayer, my son." When Majnun heard his father speaking, he wept, and then began to laugh. Suddenly a strange thing happened. He darted forward like the head of a coiled snake, stretched out his hand towards the door of the temple, hammered it against it, and shouted, "Yes, it is I who knocks on this door today. I have sold my life for love's sake. Yes, it is I. May I always be love's slave. They tell me, abandon love, that is the path to recovery. But I can gain strength only through love. If love dies, so shall I. My nature is love's pupil. Be my faith nothing if not love, and woe to the heart incapable of passion. I ask thee, my God, I beseech thee, in all the godliness of thy divine nature, and all the perfection of thy kingdom, let my love grow stronger. Let it endure, even if I perish. Let me drink from this well, let my eye never miss its light. If I am drunk with the wine of love, let me drink even more deeply. They tell me, crush the desire for Layla in your heart. But I implore thee, O my God, let it grow even stronger. Take what is left of my life and add it to Layla's. Let me never demand from her as much as a single hair. Even if my pain reduces me to the width of one, let her punish and castigate me. Her wine alone shall fill my cup, and my name shall never appear without her seal. My life shall be sacrificed for her beauty, my blood shall be spilled freely for her, and though I burn for her painfully like a candle, none of my days shall ever be free from this pain. Let me love, O my God, love for love's sake, and make my love 100 times as great as it was and is." Such was Majnun's prayer to the Almighty. His father listened silently. What could he say? He knew now that he could not loosen the fetters binding his heart, and could not find a cure for its ills. There was nothing to do but leave Mecca and start on the trek home, where they were awaited impatiently in sorrow and fear. When they arrived, the whole family surrounded the Sayyid. "How was it?" they clamored. "Tell us, has Allah helped? Is he saved?" The old man looked tired and sad. "I have tried," he said. "I have told him how to ask God for relief from this plague, this Layla. But he clung to his own ideas. What did he do? He cursed himself and blessed Layla." (9) The pilgrimage to Mecca and the old Sayyid's vain attempt to heal his son's madness was talked about everywhere. Soon there was no tent whose inhabitants did not know about it. The story of Majnun's love was on everybody's lips. Some reproached him and jeered, others pitied and tried to defend him. Many spread evil rumors. A few even spoke well of him, sometimes. Bedouin gossip came also to Layla's ears, but what could she do about it? She remained silent in secret grief. The members of her tribe, however, angry and bitter, sent mounted emissaries to the Caliph's prefect and laid a complaint against the youth. "This madman," the two delegates said, "imperils by his behavior the honor of our tribe. Day after day he trails around the countryside, his hair disheveled and a bunch of hooligans running after him like a pack of hounds loosed from their chains. Now he dances, now he kisses the soil. All the time he composes and recites his ghazals. And as unfortunately his verses are good and his voice pleasant, people learn these songs by heart. That is bad both for you and for us, because whatever this impertinent fellow composes tears the veils of customs and delicacy, and decency 100-fold. Through him, Layla is branded with a hot iron, and if this perilous wind continues to blow, it will extinguish the lamp. Order, therefore, his punishment, so that Layla, our moon, may henceforth be saved from this plague." The Caliph's prefect, having listened to their speech, drew his sword out of its sheath, showed it to the two emissaries, and replied, "Give your answer with this." By chance, a man from the tribe of the Amir happened to overhear. What did he do? He went to the Sayyid and reported. "So far, nothing untoward has happened," he said, "but I warn you, this prefect is out for blood. He is a raging torrent and a blazing fire. Seeing that Majnun does not know the danger threatening him, I am afraid that by the time he realizes it, it may be too late. We must warn him of this open well, lest he fall into it." That is how the informant spoke, and his words stung the father's heart like salt. He feared for his son's life. But however anxiously they searched for him, he was not to be found. In the end, all the men sent out to trace him came back discouraged. "Who knows," they said. "Perhaps his fate has already overtaken him? Perhaps wild animals have torn him to pieces, or even worse has happened to him." Whereupon, the youth's kinsmen and companions raised wailings and lamentations as if they were mourning the dead. But Majnun was not dead. As before, he had gone into hiding in the desert. There he was living alone, a hidden treasure. He neither saw nor heard what was happening in the world. In that world, Were they not all hunters and hunted? Did that still concern him? Had he not turned his back onto it? Had he not troubles enough of his own? He did not want the pity of his fellow men. He suffered because he could not find the treasure for which he was searching, yet his grief provided him with free passage, liberating him from the fetters of selfishness. Now, let us see what happened then. After a time, chance brought a Bedouin from the Sa'ad tribe walking along the same path. When he saw the lonely figure crouching in solitude, he at first suspected a mirage, a fata morgana. Who else would keep his own shadow company in such a place? But when he heard a soft moaning, he went nearer and asked, "Who are you? What are you doing here? How can I help you?" However often he repeated his questions, he received no answer. In the end, his patience became exhausted, and he continued on his way. But when he arrived home, he told his family about the strange encounter. "On my way through a mountain gorge, I met a creature writhing on the stones like a snake, like a madman in pain, a lonely demon. His body was so wasted that every bone was visible." When Majnun's father heard about it, he set out at once to bring home his lost son from the wilderness. He reached the hiding place and found Majnun as the Bedouin had described him, now talking to himself in verse, now moaning and sighing. He wept, stood up and collapsed again. He crawled and stumbled, a living image of his own fate. He swooned and was hardly conscious, so that at first he did not recognize his own father. But then, when the Sayyid addressed and comforted him, the firmness of his voice brought Majnun back to himself. He collapsed at the old man's feet like a shadow and implored him in regret and despair. "Crown of my head and haven of my soul, forgive me. Forgive me. Do not ask how I am, because you can see that I am weak. I wish you had been spared the pain of finding me in this state. Now you have come, my face turns black with shame. Forgive me. You know only too well how things are with me, and you also know that it is not ourselves who hold fate's thread in our hands." X. The father tore the turban from his head and threw it to the ground. The day became as dark in his eyes as the night, and he raised a plaintive song like a bird at dusk. But then summoned his courage and spoke. "Rose petal, torn and crumpled, love's fool, uncontrolled, immature, your heart burned. What evil eye has cast a spell over your beauty? Whose curse has blighted you? For whose blood must you do penance? Whose thorn has torn the hem of your robe? What has pushed you into this abyss? True, you are young, and youth has led many into confusion before, but not so deeply. Is your heart still not satiated with pain? Have you still not borne enough abuse and reproach? Will there be no resurrection for you on earth? Enough! You are destroying yourself with your passion, and me and my honor as well. If one day you hope to marry, such lack of self-control is a great fault. Even if we do not like to show our weaknesses to the world, we should have friends, genuine and true, like mirrors, clearly revealing our faults, so that we can face and cure them. Let me be your mirror. Free your heart from this illness. Do not try any longer to forge a cold iron." Sadness in his voice, the old man continued. "Perhaps you are not patient enough. if you are persistent only in keeping away from me, your friend, you hardly look at me. But he who flees and keeps aloof remains alone with the longings of his heart. Do you not know that? You try to become drunk without wine. You worship desire for its own sake. You have fled and left the harvest to the wind. You have abandoned me to the gloating satisfaction of my enemies. Regain your senses before it is too late. Do not forget, while you are playing the harp of your love, I am mourning for you. And when you are rending your garments asunder, you are tearing my soul. When your heart burns, you also burn mine. Do not despair. Some little thing, useless as it may appear to you, can bring salvation. Despair may lead to hope, just as night leads to dawn, if only you have faith. Look for the company of happy people. Do not flee from happiness. Bliss can undo all knots. It is the turquoise in the seal of God. It will come to you. Only you must have patience. Let your happiness grow slowly. Even the mighty sea consists of single drops. Even the mountain, cloud high, of tiny grains of earth. And have you not all the time in the world? With patience, you can search at ease for the precious stone. Be prudent. The dumb fall behind like the worm without feet, but the clever fox can overcome the stronger wolf. Why do you give your heart to such a rose? She blossoms without you, while you remain in the mud. She has a heart of stone. Indeed, your heart is being stoned. Why? They who talk to you about Layla seek your shame and disgrace. They offer you parsley, which is poison to a man stung by a scorpion. You must see that, my son. Give up. You are dearer to me than life itself. Come home and stay with us. Here in the mountains, only tears await you. You will find nothing but stones on this path, and deep wells in which you will drown. Do not argue. Even the prefect is out to destroy you, and if you play with madness, you are forging an iron chain for yourself. Watch the sword, my child, drawn to smite you, and take care of your life while there is still time. Make friends, be gay, and laugh at the discomfort of your enemies. XI. When the old Syed had thus poured out all the hopes and sorrows stored up in his heart, Majnun could no longer remain silent, and this was his reply. You whose majesty equals that of heaven itself, king of all our dwelling places, inhabited or deserted, pride and glory of all Arabs, I kneel before you. I have received my life from you. May you never lose your own, and may I never lose you. Your words are scorching to me, yet what can I do? I, the man with the blackened face, have not chosen the way. I have been cast onto it. I am manacled, and my fetters, as you say, are made of iron. But it was not I who forged them. It was my fate, my kismet, that decided. I cannot loosen them. I cannot throw off my burden. Not of its own will does the shadow fall into the depths of the well. Not by its own power does the moon rise in the sky to its zenith. Wherever you look, from ant to elephant, you will find no object or creature which is not fueled by fate. Who, therefore, could remove the load of the stone from my heart? Who could wash away the disaster that is crushing me, which I have not chosen? I am carrying the burden which has been put on my shoulders and cannot throw it off. You keep asking me, why do you never laugh? But tears, rather than laughter, become the sufferer. If I were to laugh, it would be as if lightning and thunder were laughing as they broke the clouds. The fire burning inside me would scorch my lips, and I would perish in the furnace of my mirth. Here Majnun interrupted himself and told the Sayyid the fable of the partridge and the ant. There once was a partridge, which, when hunting, espied an ant, and seized in its beak one of the ant's legs. It was just about to swallow it when the ant laughed and shouted, "Partridge, laugh as I do. That's one thing you are not capable of." The partridge was greatly upset. It did not stop to think. It just opened its beak to laugh heartily and said, "Really, it is my turn to laugh and not yours." But by that time the ant had escaped from its reopened prison, and the silly partridge was left alone in the field. Man, if he laughs at the wrong time, will fare no better. He will regret with tears that he laughed too soon. XII. I also, Majnun continued, have no reason to laugh. Even the old donkey does not throw down its burden before death takes it away. Why then should it fear death? You warned me, father, but what lover goes in fear of the sword? A man in love does not tremble for his life. He who searches for his beloved is not afraid of the world. Where is the sword? Let it smite me, as the cloud has swallowed my moon. My soul has fallen into the fire, and even if it hurts to lie there, no matter, it was good to fall. Leave my soul alone. It is destroyed, it is lost. What do you want from it? When the old man heard this, he shed bitter tears, and smarting with pain, took his disturbed son home. There the family nursed him, comforting him as best as they could. They also called on his former friends and entrusted the child of sorrow to their care. But for Majnun, they were all strangers. Life at home was one prolonged torture for him, and all who saw him felt tears come into their eyes. How could they help such a heart? For 2 or 3 days, Majnun bore the strain. Then he tore down the curtains which his friends put up to protect him and escaped once more into the desert of Nasht. Like a drunken lion, he roamed recklessly. His feet became as hard as iron, the palms of his hands like stone. He wandered through the mountains chanting his ghazals. But how strange! Even if Majnun was mad, his verses were not. Even if people heaped abuses and shame on him, they could find no fault in his verses. Many came from near and far to hear the minstrel in his mountain retreat. Listening eagerly and loving what they heard, they wrote down his poems and took them away to the farthest horizons. Some became lovers themselves. This has been Chapter 6 through 12 of the story of Layla and Majnun by Nizami Ganjavi, which is now in the public domain. Join me next time at Scheherazade's sanctuary to reunite with our lovers and continue the telling of their tale. Until then, I'm your host, Scheherazade, wishing you the heady tidings of the jasmine that blooms under the full moon.